Hi guys, welcome to the archive. My name is Matt and this week I'm showing off these grassland tiles. You can use these in combination with the mountain blocks that I showed in the past to make some amazing landscapes. And with a bit of help from Luke on his channel Geek Scenics, I'll be showing you guys how to flock these beautifully as grassland, with rocky features and undulating ground that's still perfectly playable. Oh, and a few dirt tiles for reasons. You'll see. Now some of you might be furiously typing already. But how do you store these? There's no way they'll stack! I actually have a storage solution planned that gives us the holy grail of modular tiles. Storage that stops delicate details getting damaged and crushed.
But more on that in a video soon.
The tiles can all be connected using card tabs, which makes them compatible with existing stone tiles. But I also added in a new, stronger way to link tiles more securely by using cut-down barbecue skewers in the corners of the card tab slots. Doing this allows you to build large areas of multi-layered terrain, using columns of plain foam blocks to hold up the tiles. You can even use more blocks of cheaper packing polystyrene for this, or corrugated card cut down and hot glued together. As long as the blocks are 3 inches high, it works. So to start off, I made the tiles themselves. To keep the video shorter, I've put notes in the corner instead of rambling. If you're crafting, you can pause these at each step to grab some more instructions in detail. I grabbed the materials and supplies I would need and started by measuring out and cutting them down to size. If you need any materials or tools for this, everything I use is linked in my equipment list in the description, and buying from any Amazon links there gives a small amount to support the channel for free. I needed to get the chipboard stuck on in a way that let me connect pieces as strongly as possible. For the 12-inch piece, I measured out this pattern and cut out the shaded strips. Tacky gluing the leftovers on another piece of chipboard allows me to use those longer skewers for more stability. From there, I glued the chipboard to the bottom of the foam, making sure the facing of the foam on top was exactly 12 inches by 12 inches. The underside of the cut might be slightly bigger or smaller due to sloped cuts when cutting the foam earlier. I then placed it under some heavy objects, chipboard side up so they don't leave any dents. You can absolutely stack these, so you only really need one set of heavy objects. The 6-inch one was pretty similar. I cut out similar patterns with these 1-inch gaps for the card tabs or skewers and glued them to the foam. The 3-inch tiles were only slightly different. I cut the card for these in a little bit shorter on each side so I could bevel the underside of the edges a little bit later. The corner pieces are a little bit different. Mine are from an older prototype, whereas if you use my template, yours should be symmetrical and a lot easier to use. To cut out the shapes, I used the template that's available for free on my Patreon. There's a link in the description. And I cut out some foam carefully using my hot wire on the lowest setting, which makes this precision a lot easier. I then measured and cut out a slot on each side and cut a little more on each side of that to give space to glue the chipboard to. I cut both sections down using an X-Acto knife and then cut the middle bit down by the same again to fit a card connection in. I then cut a piece of chipboard, hot glued it in place at the edges, and then used a sharp skewer in the corner to widen the slot to use. I wanted to indent 2 sides of the 3-inch tiles because they might be exposed on an edge. This would mean I could texture the edges as dirt later while still being able to line them up. To do this, I pushed the foam in on 2 parallel edges of the smallest tiles with the back of a thick brush, making sure to avoid pushing in the foam too close to the surface so that the top still lines up perfectly straight. Once done, there was a bit poking out on each side where I squashed it, so I trimmed that off with a sharp blade on an X-Acto knife. I did the same thing to the curved pieces on their exposed curved edge for pretty much the same reasons, although with these I carved them with a knife to get a more exaggerated effect. I also wanted to add some features to most of the tiles to break up that unnatural, flat look that most modular boards and battlemats have. It's kind of a pet hate of mine and it really pulls away from the detail that we put into everything else on the board. If you don't care, by all means, skip this bit. The larger pieces I started by adding some low escarpment and embankments, basically low-lying natural mini cliffs and mini hills. I added features like this to roughly half of each size of larger tile, though looking back, I kind of wish that I'd sloped them more gently. I'll probably do that when I add more in future. To start with, I cast up a bunch of outcroppings using this Woodland Scenics mould and some casting plaster. Before I get started though, there's a few things it's a good idea to get set up first. Now these moulds don't come with nice flat bottoms. Hey, I said flat bottoms. Dirty minded. Anyway, Point being, you want these things to lie flat when drying, so it's a good idea to cut out some supports from scrap foam or whatever you have and blue tack them to the bottom to make sure the piece will lie flat when you put it down. With the supports in place, you'll also want to grab a cheap ass spray bottle like this from the pound shop or dollar store and fill it with a mix of water and dish soap, very liquid, that kind of thing. You want about 2 drops of soap per 1 cup of water, and for those of you who want an easier time measuring, 1 cup of water is 250 ml.
Right, that's that done. Now we can mix these things up.
To get started with the plaster, mix it up in whatever ratio your plaster says to. If the plaster still feels a bit thick, you can add a little more water to make it easier to pour. It'll just end up a bit lighter and weaker. Once mixed up, give the mould a quick spray of your dish soap mix before pouring in the plaster.
The dish soap bit isn't vital, it's there to avoid air bubbles, but seeing as it's plaster, you can just chip air bubbles away and the result still looks like stone, because it's plaster.
Then just leave that to dry for 45 minutes or so and come back later to pop it out. The moulds are nice and floppy, so you can pop them out quite easily. The best way to seal these pieces into something, to my knowledge, is to use Sculptamold or Luke's modelling compound, which are very similar, if slightly different products, that use plaster to make gooey gunk that you can use to make nice natural looking ground. Now I used Sculptamold for this because I had some, but painting it led to some problems later, problems that I haven't had with Luke's modelling compound, so it might be worth considering. You can see these problems in Luke's video. I wanted to minimise how much of this stuff I used, both to save some money and also to make the finished tiles a little bit, well, actually probably quite a lot lighter. To do this, I carved up some 1-inch thick foam to make the rough shapes that I wanted for my hills and outcroppings, decided where I wanted them, and hot glued them in place. From there I was free to mix up a nice pot of Sculptamold and use it to meld it nicely to the tile around it, cover the raised foam, and also give the tile some nice undulating ground that looks a bit more lumpy and natural than perfectly flat grass. These are totally optional and very much crafter's preference. As a final step before flocking, I coated the top and edges in a Mod Podge and dark brown mix, except the outcroppings of rock, which would be painted differently. You can see how we did this in Luke's video.
Right, now I'll flock them.
Matt, before you flock it, come and see me.
He has a warehouse of flocking supplies to experiment with.
To finish the piece off, after a little discussion with Luke about my goals for the tiles, we decided to go with static grass in 2 layers. A lot of people seem to think that you can't play games on static grass, but you absolutely can when it's properly sealed. And for D&D particularly, it's really not an issue due to the low number of models being used on it. Well, as long as you've got good storage. These boxes mean each tile has a little room at the top to protect the grass. I'll be showing how to make these boxes in a video soon. You can get even more out of the grass by using bases like this that have a hollow underside for your minis where possible. Even large heavy models won't damage the grass as the thin edge just slips in and out without leaving a large flat patch. I'll go into why these bases are so much better in a future video, but if you're still using WizKids flat bottom bases and you wonder why your minis are sliding around all over the place, that's why. What's great about using this grass, apart from the realistic look, is that the edges actually blend together when the pieces are connected. This makes the gaps fade away, and in some cases practically disappear entirely. All this grass was applied with a static grass applicator, which makes the grass stand on end like this. There are links to some options in my equipment list, including a smaller budget version that is perfect for D&D. All you need to do to use these is slap down some fast drying basing glue or PVA, load it up with grass, turn it on and shake it with the wire near the surface. It's a lot less intimidating than it might seem on first glance, so seriously, if you like the look, give it a try. You won't regret it.
If you did have any questions about this, or pretty much anything in the video really, hit me up in the comments. I'm more than happy to help if I can.
We also stuck on some arid earth-based ready mix, again from Geek Gaming, around the rocky areas to blend them into the grass. This is a very nice mix that all works really well together and gives a realistic look without painting, saving some stages later. Luke has his own video of this project and I highly recommend checking it out after this one. There's a few things he shows in it in more detail, including a complete disaster that happened partway through. I also wanted to base some areas to look like dirt, and for this I used a mix of 1 part brown unsanded tile grout, which is linked in my equipment list, and 2 parts dirt from the garden, stuck down with some PVA glue. This is a genius mixture that Luke came up with some years ago. He has a full video of it over on his channel, and it gives a realistic and very durable dirt effect once sealed. I used Scenics sealant from Geek on this, mainly because I picked some up while I was at Luke's. Alternatively, you can use the stuff I show how to make in the Warcamp scatter terrain video if you can't get your hands on it. This is stuff that Luke himself shows how to make in one of his videos, and also works extremely well. I also used this dirt to texture the edges of the corner tiles, so they look great when on top of mountain blocks as a layer of turf. These dirt tiles were the ones that I used to place down buildings on or large pieces of terrain that I didn't want to put down on the grass directly. They frame the building nicely, as well as giving a flat surface to place on them that won't be damaged. You can even put blank tiles underneath the middle of buildings, so you don't even need to make as many. I made some with a bit of grass on the corners for blending the corners, but I do have more flexible plans for this in the long run. Testing pending. These tiles are also great for near surface caves with dirt floors, or the bottom of pits or ravines that you make using mountain blocks. Just quickly, thank you to those of you who make it possible to make these videos by supporting me on Patreon. Your support is amazing and makes my dream of running a channel like this possible. If you want to make sure that I can keep making more videos, on Patreon you do get access to videos early, as well as a ton of printables to help add some easy extra details to your crafting. I ended up choosing 2 different colours of static grass for the layers, both of which I mixed up a mix of 4 and 6mm grass of the same colour blended together in a bag to add some variety. All of these again were from Luke's Geek Gaming range if you wanted to get a similar result. This stuff is very well put together, to the extent that each of the grass types has elements of others in the range, so they blend together spectacularly well. And I'm really not exaggerating here. This is Luke's stuff side by side with some knock grass, which is another leading brand. One is realistic and the other is just way too bright and neon green. It kind of works for modern grass in a garden, kind of, but for natural looking grass, it just doesn't look right. The first layer was this quite light looking dead grass, which looks awesome as a Rohan style grassland once the white glue's dried more, if you wanted to go more down that route. On top of that, Luke spread around some of the dirt and grout mix that I mentioned before in random patches, which when sprayed with sealant later will seep down through the layers, giving subtle changes in colour as well as imitating the dirt beneath the grass. On top of this, we layered a spray of cheap matte varnish from the pound shop and put down a second layer of grass, this time Geek Gaming's Autumn Blend, which gives this awesome muted tone, which is great for gritty realism. Finally, we scattered some more grout over the top randomly and sealed the lot with some Scenics sealant, just like the dirt tiles, in a thick coat. I cleaned up the pieces a little when I got home, added another layer of Scenics sealant, and once that dried, a layer of matte varnish. And that was that. I now have some gorgeous grassland tiles for D&D, which I'll be adding more tiles to over time for hills, forests, and more. I can even make detailed dioramas as tiles, like an area of standing stones with whirling spirits phasing through them and into the ground itself. It makes an awesome diorama and a dangerous obstacle objective that I can use with the other tiles in future. I've always disliked bases on terrain that sort of hover above the ground. I feel like they make it more difficult to blend terrain with the area. By making features that are linked to the ground that they stand on, I feel like it opens up so many more options for stunning environments. Combined with the flexibility of modular tiles and mountain blocks, I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to a system that I can use to show whatever I want in the level of detail that I think it deserves. Please subscribe, like, and share, and until next time, I'll be in the archive.